Finally, we report in Somalia on a different matter because charcoal business has become the order of the day on Somalia, with its demand for household needs growing, resulting to negative effects on the country's forestry. With the alarming rate of the forest destruction, authorities are engaged on raising the level of awareness to the damages and the impact of climate change. The terrorist group against the government, Al-Shabaab, has made millions of dollars out of charcoal business. Let's have more details of that in this report.
One of the biggest charcoal markets in Mogadishu. Huge trucks bring charcoal here every day from regions surrounding the capital to meet the city's increasing demand. One sack of charcoal goes for as much as $10. The charcoal sold at this market is mostly brought from the Lower Shabelle region, a rich agricultural area that's considered the breadbasket of the nation.
Majorly, it is because of the huge demand locally for the subsistence and household cooking. Over 90% of the Somali households need charcoal for cooking and heating. And secondly, it is because of the availability of the market. Specifically, the Gulf Arab countries are willing and ready to take the charcoal, produce it and export it from Somalia.
Charcoal smuggled out of the Horn of Africa often fetches at higher prices in Gulf markets. The country recently sought for tougher UN sanctions after it emerged that a ship carrying more than 200,000 bags of charcoal were exported to Iraq from an undisclosed port in southern Somalia. Militant group Al-Shabaab has in the past made millions of dollars from the illegal charcoal trade. Environmentalists are now calling for increased awareness in efforts to combat desertification as the country continues to lose trees at an alarming rate to illicit charcoal trade.
Somalia is yet to be ready to face the challenges of environment. Environment is not number one priority for the government of Somalia and for the federal member states of Somalia. And also the community capabilities and the community attitude is also very low, and the environmental education awareness is also very low. That shows us that in the coming years is going to create massive influx of rural-urban migration.
A cycle of drought, famine and flooding in recent years has increased the country's humanitarian needs. Pastoralists have been forced to move from one region to another as competition over natural resources increases. Millions have also been displaced in the country as a result of climate change.
There is a pressing need to establish the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. There's also need to establish, as you mentioned, key critical policies and legislation and regulations, including the charcoal policy, including environmental management policy, which has been recently passed. But there is also need Environmental Management Act or the bill. There's also need EIA Act, Regional Management Policy, Rangeland Act. All those regulations and acts also need their implementation and their enforcement. And above all, there is also need to change the perceptions and attitudes of the communities. And that is where the gap exists, because unless we change the attitude of the communities into positive, then any blows and any regulations will not be taken effective.
Environmentalists have now begun efforts to educate people on the importance of planting trees. The exercise is taking place in schools and universities.